Namaste and welcome to the second season of Future Fit Corporates. My name is Bhavana Issar and I'm the founder CEO of Caregiver Saathi. In this season, we are going global and shifting the narrative. Caregiving is not a career obstacle or something that organizations must accommodate. It's a leadership accelerator. And through candid conversations with corporate leaders, consultants, and change makers, we explore how caregiving shapes resilience, empathy, and innovation. Let's discover what it truly takes to build workplaces that don't just include caregivers, but recognize that caregiving experience is an asset. Because the future of work is not just tech, female, or inclusive, it's compassionate, it's innovative, and therefore caregiver friendly. Welcome to Future Fit Corporates. All right, greetings for the day. And I am so excited about the conversation today. I'm getting a little cheap thrills because it's going to be Bhavana speaking with Bhavana. And I have been looking forward to this conversation because one of my mentors had challenged me to find 5, 6 equally passionate bhavnas in this world in my quest for shaping Caregiver Saathi. And I'm hoping that this bhavna is going to be one such. Delighted to welcome you, Bhavna, for this conversation. And I'm going to give a little introduction to Future Fit Corporates. Future Fit Corporates is our initiative in which we want to explore with leaders and HR professionals and women who have been professionals in the corporate world for a while, in addition to men as well, but fundamentally looking at what does it take for leaders and organizations to shape corporates that are future fit, therefore resilient and innovative. And is there any connection in being caring organizations, in being therefore sensitive to the fact that the demographics are changing, and being future ready for corporates would also mean fostering caregiver-friendly workplaces. What does it mean to shape a caregiver-friendly workplace? How is it connected with being a future-ready corporate? And what does it mean to have a culture that drives people performance while being sustainably successful, while being compassionate and caring? The dimensions are so many-fold. And it is my pleasure to have a conversation with someone like Bhavna, who is a highly experienced professional in business, strategy, and sales with a strong track record of driving growth across multiple businesses within the DSM materials cluster in India. She brings deep expertise in account management, sales, product planning, business development, along with robust capabilities in P&L management. Good Lord, I have so much to learn from you. Building and leading large teams, leadership development, and applying effective governance through her board level experience. Welcome, Bhavna.
Thank you, Bhavna. This is quite amazing. Finding another Bhavna with the same spelling as me hasn't been very normal for me. So thank you for having me here.
Yes.
And I appreciate you introducing me. I will add a couple of things. So I've been
Yes.
in a couple of organizations since the time I was at DSM. I was
Yes.
at a German multinational called Rehau, and then another US multinational called Lubrizol. So it's been quite a journey of more than 2 decades that I have been with corporates, and yes, a ton of experiences and learnings, which I'm hoping we can share as this conversation goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like we were speaking a little while ago, while not recording, was, this whole name and spelling coincidence. What a delightful coincidence to find, another Bhavna who was influenced by her father to have these spellings and then has struggled phonetically with these spellings for such a long time. Good to share that journey.
Absolutely.
Um, let's start with this. How do you relate with the idea of caregivers and caregiving in your personal experience, and therefore an organization like Caregiver Saathi?
So honestly, I think, I mean, caregiving, like you rightly shared, isn't a term very commonly used in at least the Indian culture. And most of my life has been here, as besides a couple of years away from here. Um, if I just looked at it as a noun, like caregiving, I think we all do that during the course of our
Mm.
lives.
Yeah.
Um, as parents, as children, as spouses, as siblings. And honestly, I think I've had the, well, we can say blessing, or we can say sometimes the bane of having experienced it. The bane because typically you end up giving care when it's needed.
Mm.
And when it's needed, it isn't necessarily always a pleasant situation when care is needed. So I think we've all had these experiences. I would think anybody viewing this would have a similar experience if they just went back in time. Even if as a child you were a school, you were going to school and you had a little, your parent was a little unwell, and just your mother just told you, hey, can you just pack the tiffin? I've kind of cooked and kept something for you. Can you just pack it and take it? Even that tiny bit. And your form of care was just to say, yes, yes, I will take it. Please take some rest. And then wondering that she still had the energy to cook it for you. All she needed you to do was pack it. She did not go to the extent of saying, hey, can you just take a couple of slices of bread, or maybe a packet of biscuits, or just go and buy something. That's
I
where
love
I
that
come
story.
from, right? That's where I come from. And I would always think, I mean, what is that selfless caring
Mm.
that I would see in my mother,
Mm.
which became an imbibed value in me. So for
Mm.
me, as I grew up personally and professionally, that's been a very strong part of who I am. And when I
Mm.
say personally, I just realized the importance of caring for others. And that applies to me
Mm.
in a professional sphere also. So for me,
Mm.
being part of an organization that is caring is
Mm.
important.
Mm.
Being in a position to be able to make an organization that is caring is equally
Mm.
important. So it's not
Yeah.
like somebody else's job to
Yeah.
make your sphere feel like something which you feel comfortable being part of. You
Right.
feel you are empathized with and sometimes sympathized with. We don't like sympathy,
Yeah.
at least some of us. We're like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
don't sympathize with me, but just understand where I'm coming from. That's all
Right.
sometimes people need, right? And to
Yeah.
be part of such a sphere, to me, is important. And I look at
Mm.
myself as anybody else who's employed in an organization in a professional capacity, that when I
Yeah.
need it, understand where I'm coming from and just help me with what you got, because I may just not be able to always ask for it. Sometimes I can only express what I'm going through and then hope you understand and are able to take a step forward. Because when I experience, and I am an employee, when I experience an organization that is caring, the impact of that on me in a big way is about how can I pay back doubly with what I have received, which means my motivation levels. And I'll share a little story about one of my team members. My motivation levels are like,
Yeah.
they skyrocket after that, because I experienced something that was so important for me when I needed it. Now,
Mm.
sometimes employees ask for it, sometimes employees imply it, sometimes they will just go in a shell not knowing what to do. And that typically is the spectrum in which members will operate depending on where they see the culture in the organization. So
Well said.
to move in that spectrum from a point where you've just gone in a shell, all you do is like take leave because you needed to
Mm,
do something which was important
mm,
for you.
yeah,
And you'll just put something, I have a personal exigency, personal situation,
yeah.
personal reasons, and your manager doesn't
Withdraw.
care. Yeah, and the manager doesn't care. They're just probably frustrated. Oh, we had this review today, or this meeting, now I have to deal with it, etc. That's one end of the spectrum. Another end of the spectrum is I am forthcoming. Hey, I hope everything's
Yeah.
okay. What can I help
Mm,
you with? Please take
mm,
care. When you can, please do share if there's some support I can provide. Now, those are very different reactions, explicit
yes.
or implicit, which organizations and people there take. And because of that difference in reaction, once this employee has come out of that experience, take these two extreme
Mm,
examples, their levels of bringing back to the organization what they can are very different. So in the first situation, I mean, you've literally struggled with it. You've not talked about it. Nobody wants to hear it. That's why you probably not talked about it. In the second situation, you've probably had the conversation with the manager saying, this is what happened. And there's this very empathetic soul listening to you and then offering to do various options or help you with various options on how you could deal with it, maybe giving some personal advice, I don't know, on that front. With that kind of a situation, when you come back, believe me, you're on a different plane and you're like, what can I do? Right? And how can I make myself 200% for you? So I'll share a little story to illustrate that latter. Several years ago, one of my team members, this person was a
mm,
skip level, had
mm,
a situation which did not reach me directly because it was a skip level. The
mm,
way it happened was that we were sitting in a review. So my reportee was sharing with me about something that was in that individual's sphere and saying,
mm,
yeah, he's had some personal problems and because of which he's not been able to engage on this. And that's why he couldn't join for this discussion today, etc.
mm.
I said, well, let's not take the time in this review, but maybe after this, let's just spend 5 minutes. I just want to understand what's going on because this is an individual who's been a reasonable performer, and I'm not sure I understand what has happened. Because for me, performance
Mm,
is always a combination of the other individual's motivation
100%.
and what I can identify on that individual,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So I'm
yeah,
like, maybe it's time to do, I'm already thinking succession planning and potential performance and everything. But let's look at that.
yeah, yeah.
I learned, I learned, and the rest is history because then I connect with this individual myself directly after I've heard what's happened. And I learned that he's based in location X for his job, in
Mm,
location Y, which is probably an hour and a half of flight or a few hours, maybe an overnight train travel. One of his parents has had a health situation, and actually it was very unfortunate, met with an accident, couldn't recover from it, and situations kept relapsing. And so this
mm,
individual was really down in the dumps on how can he do justice to both. And this parent, and both the parents are living on their own, doesn't know how to
yeah,
support them remotely,
yeah.
etc. All he wanted was if he could work from the location for some time. He was not wanting to leave everything. It was just not his interest. He said, no, no, I can manage. I just need you to trust me to be there. And I will be connected. I will be doing everything. And I'm trying to convince this individual, why don't you just go on leave? We will deal with
Yeah,
what does to your leave quota. He's like, no, no, no. I
yeah,
mean, the fact that I want to do my job, I just need this little concession. I may need it for an extended period of time. I cannot
yeah,
commit to you when I can get back to location. If you need me to travel, I will also do that, but I need to be there. We bent backwards because it wasn't policy. The manager needed to be convinced because we were with old school. I need to see him for him to be a performer. And I'm like,
working. Is
I
he
don't need
working?
to see him. His KPIs are clear. Clarify them more if you need to, be more pedantic about it, but you don't
Yeah.
need to see him. Let him go.
Yeah.
We don't want to lose the guy. He's
Yeah.
committed, and I can see that in him.
Yeah.
You won't believe it. That individual till date has not forgotten about that exception that
Yeah.
was made. And there
Yeah.
is nothing he will not do for the organization and the manager and the leader against
Yeah.
all odds to
Yeah.
meet and exceed expectations.
Yeah.
Right? And in
Yeah.
fact, I forgot about it until a few years later. And this individual comes and says, "You don't know what you did for me." And I'm like, "What did I do for you?" Because just, you just not
Yeah.
registered beyond the point. And he gave this
Yeah.
whole story, and I'm like, "Oh, right, I remember." And I'm like, "No, it
Mm.
wasn't a big deal because I didn't see any change from a performance
Mm.
perspective. For me, all I needed to do was two things. One, understand the situation. Two, explain it to the manager, and maybe there's a little three there because the mindset wasn't there from the
Yeah.
entire organization. I had to
Yeah.
do a little bit of both. One, kind of say, no, this has to be done this way. Two, prove it with the individual's performance that
Yeah.
this will not change our lives, our lives. His life was very different because he was
Yeah.
just that much more grounded, satisfied, and
Yeah.
content just being by his father's side in that need, that in that hour of
Yeah.
need, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
I think caregiving and our reaction to it is honestly on an entire spectrum
Yeah.
and has to be very leader led in organizations. And unless you've experienced it in any shape or form, either as the individual who's catering to it or can make a difference for someone, or as the person who's receiving it in the need of the hour,
Yeah.
you not totally understand it. But that's what is amazing for me, that I think everybody's had these situations. How much as a leader do you
Mm.
imbibe the learnings from it, whether your
Yeah.
own or somebody else's, versus be that, yeah, I mean, this is something you need to figure out, as an organization. I mean, life's changed, guys. We don't work in those same organizations where
Yeah.
caregiving was somebody's forte
Yeah.
and catering to the monetary
Yeah.
requirements of the household was somebody else's forte. Those lines have started blurring, and
Yeah.
hence we need to also start behaving and not just
Yeah.
thinking differently. Long answer to your
Yeah.
short question.
Love it. Love the story. Warms the cockles of my heart. Something that kind of brings home the message so beautifully. I see a connection between, your learning from your mom as well as learning to be a caregiver as a leader. So one of the things that I like to say is, a caregiver is not just your mom, it is also your manager and it is also your leader. And you may have constraints or limitations, but you say, you know what, the best I can do is let me prepare it, but I'm going to ask you to pack it as a manager, right? Like just like your mom did, perhaps. And you recognize that I can do my bit. And I love the story about, the person feeling grateful and the person being motivated for being seen, all that we want from each other, that the other person, especially managers and leaders, see us, right?
Okay.
And don't just see us as instruments, but see us as human beings.
Right. Yeah. There's
Mm,
there's a ton of empathy that
yes.
as leaders we need to role model,
Mm.
because
So,
without that we're just not able to draw out the potential that sits in humans. Because as
so
humans we are one personality. We're not multiple people. We're not bipolar all the time, right? with the
Yes.
same person. We don't switch off. I mean, some people take a lot of pride in, oh, I switch off when I'm at
Yes.
work. I'm like,
Yes.
that doesn't make you human sometimes if you switch off.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you have a sick child at home, believe me, a 4-year-old sick at home, if
Yeah.
you're a mom sitting at work
Yeah.
switched off, either you're like really lucky, or I'm just
Yeah. It's
wondering,
hard.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
What's
lucky
going on?
because you just made sure somebody you who could equally or even better care for you, like I've had the opportunity with more
Yeah.
stories, is taking care.
Yeah.
But there are times where you need to
It's not possible.
say, hey, this isn't working for me. I'm sorry, I will not make it today.
Yeah.
Now that, Bhavna, needs a ton of courage. It needs
No,
a ton of
absolutely. Yeah, and I, like you just said, maybe some of us as moms can do that once in a while. That I do have a very reliable support system. I have a substitute, maybe my partner, maybe some family members who can take my place for a while. But it cannot be for all all such instances. And, it's not healthy for you as the parent. And it is not healthy, of course, for the child that, you are not present. So our growth as individuals, as parents, as responsible citizens, as leaders, um, mandates that we have encountered vulnerable people, we have cared for others, and we have been vulnerable ourselves, or we have been challenged by some of these circumstances. So I'm very grateful that you brought these stories up front. They kind of set the tone for our conversation beautifully. And what I'd like to talk to you about is, in your experience as being a leader, if you were to say, what do you believe? What do you think is are the needs of all these people on a spectrum, right? You said, so how many people would need caregiving concessions at the workplace, in your estimate?
I would think the majority.
Which is how many? Like, take a guess, percentage.
Well, at least 50%.
Hmm, right.
That's just a wild
Now,
guess. You asked me to take a guess, I've taken a guess.
yes,
Because I'm
you did.
thinking, I'm thinking people, so typically a working age kind of a spectrum, and the responsibilities you carry as a family member in that working age, let's say from being a parent to
Hmm,
be a child to a parent, and everything in between, which could be exceptional. But at some point or the other, in let's say a 30-35 year kind of a career journey, you would need it. So to be honest,
that's
maybe
right.
I'll revisit my answer probably 100% if I looked at not at a point in time, but across a journey of an individual in the
Yeah,
corporate world or
yeah.
whichever
I
profession.
like the sound of 100% because I have an agenda here, but that besides the point. I do agree with you. Actually, interestingly, BCG did a very interesting study across Southeast Asia and estimated how many people would identify as caregivers versus non-caregivers. And you'd be surprised that across Southeast Asia, it is 60% identify as caregivers
And that's
versus non.
60% at a point in time, I'm assuming.
Yes. And
Right.
guess what the ratio in India is?
Maybe higher.
Yeah, I mean, certainly from my tone, it is 88 to 12.
Interesting.
88% of the workforce in India, despite not having the term caregiver, identifies with the role of caregiver. And like you started the conversation, Bhavna, many of us would think that this is from our personal space. And many would not be sure about the organization and would withdraw or take facilities like take leave.
Hmm.
So then that organizations miss out on that X factor that you spoke about. Because if employees are going to take leave and they're going to use the insurance that you're offering them as the money they need to spend for caregiving, and you as an organization say that I'm very friendly, I give you leave and I give you money to deal with your challenge, you are supporting your workforce, but you're probably missing out on the X factor.
True. Absolutely.
So help me make a compelling case for business leaders and CFOs to invest in caregiver support for their employees.
Interesting. I will start with an example. And maybe an example, but the example is not an individual, it's a couple of individuals.
Right.
It's something I think in one of our conversations I touched upon, but maybe I will share it in a little more detail. So, a ton of times,
Hmm.
one of the reasons
Hmm.
women step out
Hmm.
of the workforce
Hmm.
is maternity.
Hmm.
And maternity, not just when they have the child, but
Hmm.
maternity, which maybe starts when they have the child and then continues
Hmm.
for a time frame which we do not find very easy to define,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
it is very difficult, and I'm talking Indian context, not
Yeah.
it is very difficult old enough
Bhavna, I'm
to
losing you.
not need. Okay, I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
could
Is
you
it better?
just repeat that? Yeah, just
Yes,
repeat the
I
last.
think I know what happened. I could see it happening. So I was saying, in case of a mother, from the time
Yes.
she bears the child to an
Yeah.
indefinite time frame,
Yeah.
she feels she needs to be around for the child, or the
Yes.
child needs to be priority. And that's like a ton of stuff we've read in all those, like Tell Me How and all those wisdom distributing books, which tell you that, oh, first 5 years values get formed. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, what happened after that, etc., etc. Then somebody tells you, oh, teenage years very important to be around, even if your teenager is not speaking to you, it's important for you. And everything in between is like, oh, this is the time it's best,
Yeah.
being with the child,
Yeah.
supporting the
Yeah.
child, and
Yeah.
keep those stories apart. I think as a mother, you're never comfortable about when is the right time to go back. Now,
Yeah.
assuming that all the support system at home, you decide to go back,
Yeah.
right? How open are organizations
Hmm.
to have you back,
Hmm.
right? To have you
Yeah.
back at a level where you feel seen and heard.
Yeah.
Maybe from the time when you last stepped out of that spectrum,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or maybe in line with your qualification, your experience, as if the time frame in between shrunk. I'm not saying you can easily say, oh, it didn't happen, especially in certain functions. Things are moving so fast. You need to stay relevant. So maybe you'll need to, pick up the threads, put in some extra effort. Now, for such an individual who's taken the decision of coming back, leaving that child back with
Hmm.
someone they hopefully trust, trying to get engaged in
Yeah.
that corporate ladder
Yeah.
you stepped out of, and then continuously engaging with it.
Yeah.
To me, those are three parts which are very much a struggle for
Hmm.
that. And I'm just taking this example of a woman on maternity, but that's one type
Hmm.
of caregiving.
Yeah.
Three things need to be catered to.
Yeah.
Without going to the first one, because that's a very personal sphere. The second one about actually being welcomed back. Now, there
Yeah.
are organizations which have taken the initiative on
Yeah.
second career women.
Yes.
And it's not easy for the organization also, because you just like, okay,
Yeah.
where do I fit you? Do I fit you where you left? Do I
Yeah.
fit you a little behind that, because you need to still build up some relevance, and maybe
Yeah.
you've just gotten a little creaky,
Yeah.
need to be oiled a little bit
Yeah.
on the machinery?
Yeah.
Or I actually give you credit for that time frame that you were not around, because the kind of energy this individual comes back with, having made up her mind to leave something very important to her behind, is a different level. And I have personally experienced it. I have seen it in my own
Mm.
case, even
Mm.
though it was a very short
Yeah.
gap that I took.
Yeah.
But more than me, I have actually seen it with someone who took a 9-year gap
Mm.
and then
Mm.
came back. We took that individual as an intern because we did not know. And we were also
Yeah.
piloting this whole intent. And
Right.
who to pilot it with but me, as
Yeah.
at the helm of affairs. And this individual just took off. There was no
Yeah.
looking back. The kind
Yeah.
of effort that went in
Yeah.
from her was way beyond even some of the college
Yeah.
interns hiring, because she had left something behind. And for her, and this is the important part, making use of every minute that she was dedicating to for her
Mm.
job was most important. So these are
Yeah.
individuals who will not be found chatting. Not that I'm saying chatting is good. I think it's very healthy to chat and vent and whatever.
Yes.
But these are individuals who will be like, okay, I need to get something done in the time frame that I have budgeted for the purpose. And by the way, I need to prove to this
Yeah.
organization that I was worth the investment. So ROIs are important, as much important. And since you mentioned the CFO, ROIs are as much important for such an individual from her personal aspect,
Yeah.
more than it is important for the organization, because the organization took this decision, okay, let's give this a try, maybe this works, let's maybe
Yeah.
put her as an intern. She's
Yeah.
not looking for the next 10 years. She's just like, I've made a decision to come back. I need to make every minute of that comeback worth my decision. And
Yeah.
so guess what? For her, ROI is more important than it is for
Yeah.
the CFO, for the time and
Yeah.
energy that she spends. And this is something that leaders need to understand. And it isn't always very straightforward, because for as many people you'll see in this manner, you'll also see some of the black sheep around there, right? People will be like, yeah, I'm
100%.
trying, but it's not working out. Yeah, I mean, it takes all kinds. We are, after
Yeah.
all, the human race. We are all
Yeah.
kinds here, right?
Yeah.
And it's fine, because some things work, some things don't. It's, I mean, even performance is a bell curve. So don't
Yeah.
assume everybody is like on the right end. It is a bell curve. That's why it's called
Yeah.
a bell curve,
Yeah.
right? And that's where we need to be cognizant that yes, there are individuals out there wanting to make a comeback, and they will give it all they got, because for them the ROI is important. Very
Yeah.
different, very different from someone who's been there. They're probably looking at this individual and wondering, why she's slogging so hard? Well, because she has
Yeah.
something to prove to herself. And that, in a way, has been also my story.
And thank you for sharing that. And I think that that's inspiring also for people who may want to see it takes all kinds. I have a friend who said that, listen, I can do one job at a time. And I think bringing up a child is an important job for me. And I think I want to focus on that. And I think that's equally valid that you say, okay, I don't want a professional job to do, and I want to do the job of a mother for a few years, and then I want to make a comeback, and it should be possible to make a comeback. And some organizations that have made that investment find it valuable. And there may be another set of people who say, listen, I'd like to scale back for a while. I don't want to
Hmm.
do one or the other. I'd like to find a balance. Now, in that period,
Hmm.
how can me and my partner, both of us who are working, have a reliable support system,
Right.
right? And we can run through this period. And there is value in that too. there is value in just staying in the workforce, maybe at a
Yeah,
different scale, maybe not on a different trajectory. And can the organization provide multiple paths?
absolutely, absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know?
and I've had the good fortune of being in an organization. So I'm kind of working through my trajectory and sharing, where we had this whole concept of work-life integration policies. We started
Mm.
calling them policies, but then we changed it to call guidelines because policies
Yes.
become like by the word, and we
Yeah.
realized, and I'm saying we, but the reason I'm going to go into some detail on this is because I took on myself as one of the leaders in the organization to actually get the adoption of these work-life integration guidelines in the
Right.
organization, which meant in literally taking each and every individual in the
Mm.
organization to share the spirit of those guidelines, because we felt the need of the hour was to integrate work and life for the population that was with us in the organization. Otherwise,
Mm.
we were going to exactly face what we've been alluding on, which is an exodus of some very talented people who are not able to make these watertight distinctions like this is work and this is life outside of work. It doesn't happen, like I said. And
Yeah.
so, what we did was we said, so what is important for
Mm.
an employee,
Mm.
especially when they need to be giving care?
Mm.
One of the things was they needed flexibility, which
Yeah.
means I may not be able to punch into the system between 9 and 9:15 in the morning. Sorry for the sarcasm in your voice, but I have had my personal views on punching. But because you can't do it, what will happen? 3 days you didn't do it, fourth day you lose a leave. Right? That's what happens, even if you were late. We did away with that. And we
Yeah.
said, we will allow. So, anyways, that was archaic, but we decided to allow flexible hours.
Right.
All we did was we said there will be some core working hours
Yeah.
when you need to be available, and not available like physically available, but on the system, on the phone, people should be able to reach you because they
Yeah.
know this is the time that you are committed from an organization's perspective. So those core hours, please be reachable,
Yeah.
but flexibility otherwise, which means you did not need to come in at a certain time, you did not go, as long as between you and your manager you had
Yeah.
agreed, like, yeah, today I need some time away,
Yeah.
maybe because I need to take my father
Yeah.
for his doctor's appointment. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that I need the whole day. It just means those couple of hours I'm
That's
traveling,
right.
I'm bringing him back, getting some tests done, discussing with the doctor, and I need to get him
Right.
back home safely. And then I'm available. And by the way, I don't even need to be at office for the rest of the hours because just wasting time coming and going is not worth it. I am available, right? So
That's right.
we said this was one aspect, and this is way before COVID. I'm talking about when
Yeah.
online remote was not exactly
Yeah.
uh, a very well known or well
Yeah.
accepted way of doing things. So that's
Yeah.
one part. The other was we also introduced part time working.
Yeah.
So we said there are people who said, okay, I'm okay to dedicate X number of hours of my day. I just can't be there all the time. And during those X
Mm.
number of hours, I will be available in office or offline or remotely, as the case may be, or as the need may be. And I'm
Yeah.
committed to that, right?
Yeah.
Those, Bhavna, are some examples of what we call work life integration policies, and then renamed them to guidelines, because
Yeah.
all of these need a mindset from the
Yeah.
manager's perspective
That's
to
right.
enable employees to get the fullest out of this.
Absolutely.
But an
Absolutely.
employee which has had the peace of mind to deal with that appointment he or she needed to take his or her
Yeah.
father to is very happy to come back and then continue work. Come back as in
Yeah.
come back to their desk or whatever it is
Yeah.
that they need to be at. And that
Yeah.
was important. But the reason we said that this is not something that, okay, HR sends out a document and guess what, it is
Mm.
done. No, it doesn't work that way. It
Mm.
actually needs someone who understands this, is at a reasonable position of leadership where people will hear. And when I say people, I'm talking about people managers will
Yeah.
hear, listen, and then reflect on it, because every such case that may land at a manager's table in a large organization may not always fit into the contours of a policy, and will
Yeah.
may require some discussion, some understanding, and a decision that may need to be taken on whether this is okay to do. Because there's obviously the flip side of this. there
Yeah.
can be there can be a misuse, right? Which is why we
Mhm.
said we will not call
Yeah.
it policy, because tomorrow there may be, I mean, sorry to use the word, but a rogue employee who said, hey, you told me I could do this, so I'm doing this,
Yeah.
and that may be like less than 0.5% that even thought of it that way. But we said,
Yeah.
let's make this enabling for
Yeah.
all the 99.95% that will benefit, right? Now, the important piece that I did not mention here was the big decision we took as a leadership team was to make this gender agnostic. And we said
Love it.
caregiving, caregiving is not a particular gender's prerogative. And that is
Absolutely.
why, in my example, the guy needed to take his father for an appointment.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, the guy needed to take his father in law for an appointment
Yeah.
because the lady had an important meeting, which,
Yeah.
though she thought the organization would be understanding enough, she herself did not want to let
Yeah.
go. Because guess what? Maybe she was one of those second career women who got the
Yeah.
opportunity and said, I will give it all I want. And this is the change that organization brought in, where the gender roles the traditional gender roles started
Yeah.
blurring, and any guidelines that the organization had ensured that they were gender agnostic. One, because we needed to make this available to both the genders depending on the
Yes.
need. But more than that, we needed to change a mindset that
Yeah.
if a certain role traditionally been with a certain gender, and organizations are focusing on the business case for diversity, and by diversity I do not mean only gender, because they
Yes.
think there is a business case for it. I'll go back to the CFO you mentioned. It is important that we provide these kind of, call it facilities, call it amenities, call it any flexibilities that may
Accommodations.
to everybody, because
Yeah.
the biggest disservice we do is when we make it for a specific gender.
For
That's the
sure.
biggest
For sure.
disservice we would do, because then it starts getting associated, and guess what, rather than change the mindset, you're actually
Yeah.
accentuating the mindset, right?
Yeah. 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 You're building resistance also. I mean, I remember in one of my organizations where, people reacted to quote unquote affirmative action, thinking that, oh my God, now, hiring women and promoting them is going to reduce our opportunity. And, then resistance comes in a very strange way, and sabotage happens in a very unconscious way, and you don't
Right.
want that. And I'm so glad that you highlighted this so beautifully. um, and continuing to make the business case, I'd like for you to give me your thoughts about, I think you referenced it briefly, but I'd like to take that a little deeper, which is, you know one of the partners might be working in your organization, and it's a family thing, unpaid care work at the family level. needs rebalancing. I mean, that's what the UN is also saying, that let's rebalance unpaid care work. It is across both genders. Now, you might have one of the genders working in your organization, and the other person is working in another organization, right? Now, leaders, my request, urge to leaders is to not just think within your organization, but to think at industry body level, to think at corporate level, and to think at the larger level and say, what can we do as leaders through vehicles like CSR, industry bodies, other, working across companies to create a shift? Because when you do some of these things at an organizational level, it will not necessarily add up. But if you do it as a consortium, then it will probably add up. So if you were to look at the care related challenge, what would you say from one CSR standpoint and two, an industry body standpoint? What could be some of the things on your wish list?
Oh, I have a long one. Let me see how much
Yes,
of
let's
it I
go for it.
can. Well, honestly, I think, and I'm going to talk, Bhavna, from an India perspective.
Yes.
And to be honest, it's not that these ideas didn't cross my mind, because I think we all want to create a solution to a problem that we personally have faced.
Yes.
And we always, it's the first time we say, hey, why can't I do something about this, rather than just
Yeah.
complain about it or work around it? Let me try and do something, right?
Yeah.
So let's say one of the things is around um, childcare,
Yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
there is this whole government mandate of, when the organization is above a certain number of employees, then you need to have a mandatory facility, etc.
Yeah.
Nothing about the organizations or the employees in the organizations that did not cross the mandatory mark. Where did their
Mm-hmm.
children go? Now, every neighborhood has something sprouting somewhere. How many times a mother has had her doubts? I'm again just talking mothers, because fathers will go with the mother's instinct on, hopefully, on what's best for the
Yes.
child,
Yeah.
right? But how many times has a mother in this country of ours doubted the facilities available at the creche
That's right.
that is accessible for her?
Yeah.
And when I say accessible, means I'm not traveling 1 hour to drop my child there, then traveling another hour to the office, and
Yeah.
then I'm talking Mumbai because that's where I am based. The quality of these services,
Yeah.
and hence the safety or the peace of mind. I mean, safety,
Yes.
psychological safety, physical safety, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
All of
Absolutely.
that is something that needs to be ensured.
Yeah.
Why is it that, and I understand the cultural aspect, but even if I was to
Mm.
get over the cultural aspect, how often and how peacefully would I be willing to leave my child at a child care that may be currently available to me?
Yeah.
The question is probably, I mean, the answer is probably 5%. And those
You know,
5% who, yeah, sorry.
no, no, no. I lived in Mumbai for such a long time, and I moved in with a small child many, many years ago. And I was really surprised. Mumbai has had working women forever and just doesn't have good childcare.
Correct. Now, my first inclination, so I was way past this issue when this thought struck me, was how can we provide organized care
Yeah.
as corporates? And by
Yeah.
organized care, I don't mean because there was a mandate that I need to have this, or
Yes.
because as a corporate, I decided this is a good to do, and hence I
Yeah.
created this, which is
Yeah.
in the same facility, and it has a ton of work to do. I totally acknowledge the amount of effort that goes in, because I was part of a
Yeah.
corporate that made this happen. Now, if I just extended that to an industry-wide phenomena, wherein we actually create that ecosystem
That's right. That's right.
available to professional women at
Yes.
chargeable basis, but
Mhm.
with the assurance of safety, security, facility, caring, everything that
Yeah.
matters. I mean, I know you can still only cover 90% because that 10% a mother will never feel it
Yeah.
happened. But I'm saying because in India versus if I talk to a friend, let's say in North America, let's say in the USA, right? They're not thinking twice before leaving a child at a childcare facility. For them, that's the way it is. They may still be able to call parents from India, and I'm talking about Indians only. They may still be able to call parents who'll come and who'll stay, who'll take care. But sometimes the facilities are good enough and you're happy to leave that. Why not? And this is where then I'm thinking, as an industry body, we bring in corporates to actually create this. And it can be one corporate that takes the lead, but with the workings of the others. And when I say workings, I'm bringing in expertise, but more than that, sometimes these kind of initiatives actually need a critical mass to make the business case, right? The CFO and the business case. See, I love the CFOs and their business cases. You need a critical mass because everything will cost.
Yeah. Hundred
Let's talk,
percent.
because and the mother is willing to pay. You and I are
Yeah.
willing to pay for what I will
Yeah.
get in return. And you and I will determine what this kind of a facility looks like. That
Yeah.
is something, and so there's multiple things I'm trying to bring in here. One is a corporate takes the lead to set it
Yeah.
up with a wider set of corporates that sign in that yes, this will be our preferred mode. A lot of corporates
Yeah.
will be like, oh, this doesn't fall in my strategy. I mean, I know there is enough corporates for whom it will fall in
Yeah.
strategy, but yeah, maybe
Yeah.
it doesn't fall in your strategy, but maybe you did it for your employees. Why not expand that learning? Number
Yeah.
one. Number
Yeah.
two, industry bodies, there is a ton of them which talk on diversity, which talk
Yeah.
on gender,
Yeah.
all of that. They can probably put a little money behind the talk and say, I'm signing up for it.
Yeah.
Let's create this new body. Or maybe it's a startup that brings it up. Maybe it's another mother that just brings it up and
Yeah.
everybody signing for it through an industry body. But more than that, I think we need a ton of regulation, which also, and not regulation which becomes more disruptive or more hindering, but regulation which ensures. In the same way that every time there's a fire in a restaurant,
Yeah.
somebody goes and checks what was not in order, and most of the time, almost 100% of the time, you find something that was not in order. It was just not
Yes.
taken care of, right?
Yeah.
So all these three need to happen. So you need to get behind, the corporate needs to get behind that startup or take the lead themselves because they've done it once to create a wider spectrum. The industry bodies need to bring in the players in order to support that with the critical mass, like sign up for it. And the regulations need to be ensuring what is critical in certain places. The minute you say regulation in India, everybody's like, are you serious? Do you want to do this? I'm like, no, you know
Yeah.
what? Not always a bane. It is a blessing, right?
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes our implementation or interpretation of it is where we struggle, right? And that's a different story altogether. So to me, that's how I'm thinking, Bhavna, that this comes together. I am not
Mm.
wanting to put it as a public sector enterprise because that may
Yes.
not, and I'm taking only this one example from a caregiving
Mhm.
perspective, which is focused on this. If I shift gears and I think about caregiving from an support system perspective, when you're talking geriatrics, that's a different segment altogether, which actually needs something. So, talk about old age homes. One, taboo in our country. Two, just see the facilities that are there. See
Mm.
how many and how, both of them.
Mm.
And believe me, I know someone who's done a ton of research on this because it is such a need of the hour. Again,
Mm.
there's at least 20 people I can name who've had this as a personal situation and raised the question,
Yeah.
right? The solution is not too different from the one I was speaking about earlier, right? Because that working age population that we are talking about always,
Yeah.
somewhere or the other in their life, want something. Maybe they need it
Yeah.
for themselves and they're like, hey, who's going to take care of me when I grow old? They're probably saving
It's
enough
going
just
to
to,
happen.
they
It's
can
going to
fund their,
happen.
right? So,
It's
so
going to
my
happen
point
soon.
right. So my point is that is, I mean, and yeah, I'm associated with a startup that's focusing on that. But that's my point, that there is this need which has a solution. Now, here there may be a little more role for the government to play. So, for
Mm.
example, you talked about attendance in
Mm.
one of our conversations, right? Attendance who may be needed for home care
Yeah.
of, let's say, an old age patient. Or maybe
Mm.
sometimes it's not a patient, maybe somebody who's just not as able and they just need that support.
Mm.
The current system leaves so much to be desired because it
Yeah.
is entirely in the private sector. And
Yeah.
believe me, anybody who has tried that system has at least once felt they've been held to ransom because they don't have a
Mm.
choice,
Mm.
right? Because your only choice is to do it yourself. And sometimes that
Mm.
is not a sustainable possibility. Not
That's
because
true.
you're not willing to do it, but you know what? Sometimes the patient is not happy for having to have you do it. That part we do not,
100%.
right? So I may be happy to be a caregiver, but guess what? The person whom I'm willing to give care for is like, no, 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 no. I don't want you to do this. Can you find someone? Right? And then I'm like, where the hell do I find that someone whom I can rely on with all the qualifications and qualities that are needed? Because I was willing to do it myself. Right. So I'm not saying you get an MBA from IIM Bangalore for the purpose, but guess what? The quality of these people that may be available needs so much to be desired, and that is where the government can play a role. So that
Mm.
solution is different from my earlier example because that is where, just the way ITIs train, in the same
Mm.
way, there can be vocational training for the purpose, right?
Yeah.
Just the way nursing colleges exist,
Yeah.
can have
Ye-
attendant training.
there is the NSDC training, which does skills development training for geriatric care and general duty assistants. But there is inadequate recruitment for it because it's not a career of aspiration.
It is, so to be honest, it isn't a career of aspiration or it isn't a well-known career
Both.
is also a difference, right?
Yes, yes. It is not a
Because
career. So there isn't a career path, like if you become an attendant, then can you become something else? Do you have to stay that all your life? Can you grow to something else? That's one. So there isn't a career path. It is not a known career. It is certainly sometimes seen that, this is like domestic aid. So there isn't social status, right? And, where is the opportunity to increase your earning? All of us want an opportunity to increase our earning. So does the care attendant. And we don't have, and you're absolutely right, that this is a space that or the industry bodies play a role or CSR plays a role in investing in this because we are certainly very advanced in terms of CSR, but we we may need to put our attention on building the care infrastructure as much as education and other healthcare investments.
yes. And I think the other piece is also the spectrum on which, so let's say when you're talking about nursing,
Huh.
there is a qualification that gets looked for. And
Great
somewhere
point.
the positioning of an
Yes.
attendant is what needs to change. It is not a glorified maid, let's
Yes.
say, and I'm just taking a woman example, is not a glorified maid who's paid better, who
Yeah.
just is
Yeah.
around. It's not
Yeah.
that. It is actually somebody who needs to know quite a few things about
Yeah.
caring for somebody in their old age in a
Yeah.
certain ecosystem, right? And I think
Yeah.
the minute that becomes like a certificate course, it
Yeah.
starts coming with less of a stigma, because otherwise the assumption is, oh, anybody can do it. Okay, that
Yeah.
16-year-old is not too
Yeah.
interested in studies, couple of years from marriage, let her become. And I'm like,
Yeah.
my first question is, what's the training you've received? Second
Yeah.
question, what's the experience? And the answers are appalling.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
worst cases, hence the experience of the person in need for care is appalling. So it
Yeah.
cannot be just a one shot kind of an approach. It
Yeah.
has to be a systemic change. And typically, when you need a systemic change, which is not the case in childcare, you
Yeah.
need the government's intervention when it starts bringing in courses that provide you with a qualification which becomes the bare minimum. And this comes out of the unorganized sector into an organized sector, because it's not that there aren't firms that are
Yeah.
providing these services that aren't paying taxes. There are enough
Yeah.
of those. But
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
today there is such a shortage on
Yeah.
nursing, right? So what was my
Yeah.
solution when I realized the kind of gap? I actually switched from an attendant to a nurse.
Mm.
And there was this whole white space in between, because I was just so
And
done dealing with them. So it's always personal. That's what I said. Every time there's a business opportunity, it's personal.
for sure, for sure. And I mean, we have a wide gap in terms of nursing medical staff, as well as attendant staff, as well as trained staff. And you want people who get into the job because they like that job, not because it has low entry barriers, and therefore this is the easiest thing that you can do. And you certainly don't want somebody who cannot read a prescription to be caring for an older adult. uh, or
Sure.
you need a very different support system. um, Bhavna, this is a conversation that I think will need a part two. And maybe I like the rhythm that we seem to have found. I am glad to find another Bhavna who spells her name non-phonetically and has the same struggles. Uh, in addition to share our thoughts on this very important topic. But I do think that for now, we should bring our conversation to a close. And I'd like for you to reflect back on our conversation and, probably give your closing remarks and maybe your wishes for Caregiver Saathi or the care economy or more women in the workplace or future fit corporates. Over to you.
Thanks, Bhavna. Clearly, you noticed there was a lot of passion on the topic. And like I said, if it's personal, it's passionate and it
Yeah.
becomes professional, but the passion exists. So, personal, professional, passion, it's all
Yes.
pretty much merged together. And I go back to my answer to your question on how many people are caregivers. And like I said, in their career journey, there won't be an employee who would not be a caregiver,
Yes.
either at a point in time, over an extended period of time, in multiple phases, all of that.
That's
And
right.
hence, while the term caregiving isn't very common in India, I think the whole value system is such that as Indians, we naturally tend to feel it our duty, our responsibility, and our personal commitment, happily so, on caregiving. And
Yeah.
it cannot be just done in an ad hoc manner. I think
Yeah.
it has to come as a kind of an ecosystem that
Yeah.
needs to start getting built. It won't happen overnight. And I
Yeah.
think Caregiver Saathi is poised at the right place, at the right time, and the right passion to drive this ecosystem forward. So I wish you all the best and
Okay.
look forward to a ton of work in the field from you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. With that, I hope that all the leaders and business managers who will be following us in this very long form, free flowing conversation will have their bit to add, and that we will be able to inspire many others to tell their stories and incorporate this in their business strategy because the future is care. Thank you very much. Love talking
Thank
to you.
you. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you for watching this episode of Future Fit Corporates. If today's conversation resonated with you, don't let it end here. Join the Future Fit Corporates Club or the FFC Club. Explore our full dossier and discover powerful blogs from our past speakers. Let's move beyond inclusion as a buzzword. Let's make diverse experiences, especially experiences of caring for others, caregiving, a leadership strength. Together, we can truly build not just a caring world, but future fit workplaces. Until next time, take care and let's keep the conversation on.